So, I just finished a video. A lot of my videos seem to start right after I finished a video. But, basically, it was by Ordinary Things, about longevity, and the first part of the video was very punchy, essentially he was talking about the cult or the religion of longevity, that is being either how to live forever, how to extend your lifespan, etc. And how there's three main camps. Some who believe you can live forever, some who believe all you can do is reduce your de-aging, and then I forget the third group of people, but essentially they go from most reasonable to like most extreme, and it starts with like science and like just very fundamental science, well studied, pretty much how to stay healthy, and it goes essentially towards experimentation and like new risky stuff, especially in biotech. And the second half of the video focused a lot on specifically Brian Johnson, that one billionaire who is trying to make himself live forever, most notably famous from the whole blood boy thing, where he got his son and his dad both like swapped blood with him, something like that, in experimental treatment. But for me, the video, and I think I was like skimming through the comments, and after I finished, because a lot of people had the same thought that I had, which was that the video really humanized him. I really appreciate the way Ordinary Things asked him like pretty good, poignant questions, and it humanized Mr. Johnson for me, in the sense that he was someone who had lost something and was doing his best to get it back. And that loss being a sense of like community and family and like youth and a happier time. Not to like psychoanalyze him or anything, but that's essentially what I got from his answers in the interview, was that he was trying to recapture something that he had lost. But he said he wanted to like remain in the present, and that's what he was living for, living for tomorrow. Just trying to spend as much time on Earth as possible, because he was enjoying life. This is where he wanted to be. But at the same time, there are these undercurrents of like small losses in his life that I almost feel like, I don't know, maybe it's the way the video is framed. But I would recommend to go watch the video to understand what I'm talking about. And I that gave me the question of what I am living for. Because, Brian Johnson gets a lot of hate from people online, and people, brush him off. I think he's, a guy who really does care about, the things that he's doing. A lot of these treatments that he's doing are extremely, are very risky. I mean, he's essentially using his body as a test subject for, a lot of different treatments that haven't been tested, where he's the first one doing it. And, I feel like it isn't someone who just is doing it for, superficially. I feel like he really does believe in what he's doing. And, yeah. Going back to what I was saying about what are you living for? When I woke up today, or even right now, I'm trying to think, what is the thing that I am living for, that I am existing for right now? And a lot of the time I think I exist in a sort of haze. My mind will go through the day not being able to see more than one step ahead, or not even see a step ahead at all, and just automatically do something, which is usually get on Twitter or watch some YouTube, It's I watched a video recently which talked about James Clear's Atomic Habits, which is a book I'm very familiar with because I was forced to read it by my dad, and who's also quite into health and wellness and stuff like that. But he made me read it, and I forgot all of it. But another YouTuber that I watched, she brought it up in her video, a quote, which is some, to the extent of, we revert back to, obviously if you look at the quote, it'll be a lot better than what I'm about to say, but essentially when you get in trouble, you revert back to your habits. You revert to your baseline. And I guess my brain does that when it doesn't know what to do. It reverts back to its habits, and unfortunately its habits are all bad. So maybe I should read that book again. But yeah. So essentially I've identified one area of my life that I need to fix, which is my habits. Okay, good to know. Now, looking ahead, because I don't think people want to live by their habits. I think it's better to be aware of your situation and to see, not see ahead, but to have a clear vision. Not necessarily to see a path, but to at least see the landscape around you. To be able to choose. And I think being able to choose is one of the most important things to be grateful about, whether it's your financial situation allowing you to choose to do things, or the weather that you have, being able to choose to do things like that. There's so many things that are things to be grateful for, that we often take for granted, and I also take for granted. And so, in the same way, essentially, once your habits are down, you have a good baseline. You have something to fall back on, you have something to rely on, and you can sort of trust your brain and your body. Then you can choose to do other things, to step out of your habits and try something new. I just went on a tangent that I didn't think of when I first wanted to record. Now, after that video, I also remembered the YouTuber Technoblade. Very famous. I watched him for a while, and obviously he passed away. I would say pretty recently. Still, I think it's been like 2 years or a year around that time. And I remember there was a video that he had on his channel back when he was just starting to get going. Only a couple 100,000 subscribers, maybe like 200, 300,000, compared to 15 million, which he has now. And this was before all this stuff that he did with, like, obviously if you don't watch Technoblade, you won't understand what I'm trying to say. But back when he was doing like Skywars commentaries, and essentially, I'm pretty sure the video title is called Edgy Teenager Talks About the Meaning of Life. And pretty much he says his philosophy is like, I think his phrase was to always shoot for the stars or shoot for the moon. There's like there's a question that my dad told me. I'm pretty sure it's like a common question. It's like, let's say you have 2 buttons. One button, you get 1 in 100,000 chance, and you press it, and if you get that 1 in 100,000 chance, you get $1 million. But to the next to you is a button with a 1 in 5 chance, let's say, to get $50,000. A lot of people would choose the better odds to get the less amount of money. But what Techno said is that he would always choose the button with the lower odds and the bigger reward. And essentially, according to his life, he said, when there's something that's super improbable, but it's the best thing that he wants, he will always go for it. And I think that's how he got so big with his YouTube thing. He really did put a lot of time into getting to the point that he was at before he passed. I think his dad also talked about how like hyper obsessed he was with like Minecraft and YouTube, and that he was a very hard worker and very smart in school, and like apparently he learned languages quite fast. But all of that talent, all of that hard work, that passion, all went to, what made him great. And so many other people would be tempted to brush it off and take the easier path, but he didn't. And that brings me back to Brian Johnson. I respect Technoblade a lot for his mindset on life, for the way that he lived, and his reputation is that he was very kind to everyone around him. And I kind of see the same thing in Brian Johnson. And Brian Johnson is completely different. He is not particularly well respected, nor is he well liked by a lot of, people, online people, or particularly by some of the more scientifically minded people in the longevity space. But I see that same passion and that same drive to be something, to shoot for a dream. That's essentially what I thought. And come to think of it, in the past, I saw Brian Johnson as, I think many other online people do, as someone who, egotistical or stupid, or, classic billionaire blood boy wanting to live forever type deal. But that question, what are you living for? And realizing that I don't spend time being grateful for the things that I have. And that I look around and I see the things that I've been given. And yet I don't shoot for anything at all. I say I want to do something, but I don't do it. To me, that is a huge disappointment. I don't know how I come across on recordings, but obviously the people who are on video, you don't see the full picture, It's almost the same thing with my friends or my family. They only see part of who you are. They don't, my friends have never seen me like at home, or how I really act around my parents or my sisters, or, my parents have never seen how I've acted at school. My teachers don't know how I act at home. And all of them think different things about who I am. My art teacher, my former art teacher, I look up to her and respect her so much. And she says that I have talent. And my old elementary school reading teachers, English teachers, they constantly tell me how I should go into writing, that my writing is so good. But none of them know, how disappointed I am with myself, with the things I've made, with my lack of making things, the feeling of inadequacy. And whenever I'm around these people, sometimes I know what they're saying isn't true, but sometimes I truly believe what they're saying, And then once I'm out of their sight, I remember, and at that point, which me is the real me? Is it the happy me when I'm with my friends, or is it the me who doesn't know what he's doing? Is it the me who is happy to go to community college and considers it a blessing and an opportunity? Or is it the me who doesn't and is disappointed and wished that he could have gone somewhere else? When I talked to a guy yesterday at my local climbing gym, I told him, I really thought that I had wonderful parents and that I was happy to I have to pay rent while I'm staying here. And am I really happy? I was happy when I was talking to the guy. Did I believe what I said? Was it true? I don't know. I also think about when I look at myself from an outsider perspective, I often would like to just tell myself to shut up and go and do the work, And yet, time after time, I just, the same cycle repeats itself. And at this point, in watching my own video, I would also say, shut up and go and do something. I don't know. In terms of what I am living for right now, I'm living for when school starts. I'm essentially waiting for school starts to get back into the saddle and start working hard again. And I'm using that as an excuse to sit and do nothing. Because I'm like, well, when that comes around, I'll get to it. I'm procrastinating, essentially. But in general, in a more philosophical sense, what I'm living for is hoping that tomorrow will be better. Not tomorrow, but even just the next week or the next month, or just any time in the future, that eventually I will feel better. Which I think is not a good way to live, especially if you're not going to do anything about it. If you're going to do the minimum amount of effort required, then that's not a good way to live. Just hoping that something will happen. keep thinking back to, I think, the one time in my life where I really, really did try at something. I wish I could like capture that again.